Semua ini dimulai ketika semangat untuk mewujudkan mimpi semakin dekat menjadi kenyataan. Dunia berubah begitu cepat. Setiap ide baru bermunculan, seiring dengan perubahan cara menjalani kehidupan yang baru. Terus belajar, terus menyesuaikan, dan terus berusaha menemukan kemana tujuan akhirnya. Untuk suatu saat nanti, kamu akan berhasil menjadi pengusaha, menjadi ahli keuangan, menjadi manajer hebat di suatu perusahaan besar, atau kamu akan menjadi pengacara handal. Apapun yang akan kamu pilih, jadilah dirimu sendiri. Kehidupan seperti apa yang kamu putuskan untuk kamu jalani. Cerita apa yang akan kamu tulis. Lihatlah gambaran besarnya. Sejauh mana kamu peduli terhadap dirimu.
I never thought it would end like this. Guess I should just hold tight and grab your shit.
Sejauh mana kamu tahu kekuatanmu. Sejauh mana kamu mengenal talentamu. Dan sejauh mana kamu mampu bertahan untuk terus berusaha. Bagaimana kamu memastikan apa yang benar-benar kamu inginkan.
I don't know about you, baby. Really feel the stage anyway. I can't think about it lately. Love doesn't taste what I can't wait. Give me some time to let it go.
Tempat di mana kamu bebas berkreasi. Tempat di mana interaksi begitu hangat dan jujur. Tempat yang membuatmu bersemangat dan serasa semua energi berputar di sekelilingmu. Saling memberikan semangat, saling memberikan kesempatan, tidak peduli asalmu dari mana, dan bahasa apa yang kamu gunakan. Waktu kita terbatas, lakukan sesuatu yang luar biasa. Teruslah lapar akan pengalaman. Teruslah ikuti passionmu. Ayo, terus maju wujudkan mimpimu. Masa depan sudah di sini. Hai Pak, saya sedang berlatih untuk besok.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Krisvevi Arjanti. It is an awesome and precious chance for me to be your master of ceremony this morning, on Saturday, the 27th of August 2022. First of all, let us say our grace for this wonderful opportunity that we all have today. The honorable speakers, Assistant Professor Fasa Puravadeja, PhD from Assumption University, Mr. Maxim Kin PC from English First, Mr. JZB Opada from San Pedro College, Dr. Ganjar Harimansyah from Balai Bahasa Provinsi Jawa Tengah, and Dr. Andes Lilik Supriyatmaji MPD from Stigubang University Semarang. The Honorable Vice Rector for Cooperation and Institution Development Affairs, Dr. Ellen Puspitasari MSI, the Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Law and Language, Dr. Agnes Widiangningrum, SE, SPD, NPD, the Honorable Lecturers, fellow students, all participants, and presenters, welcome to the second International Student Conference. This conference is proudly presented by the Faculty of Law and Language Studies of Stigubang University Semarang. This year's conference takes a very interesting theme: digital learning in English teaching, linguistics, and literatures. Before we start, allow me to read the programs of our event today. First is the opening, the prayer, and singing our national anthem. Next, we will have the welcome address from the Vice Rector for Cooperation and Institution Development Affairs. After that, we have the opening address from the Dean of the Faculty of Law and Language. We will continue our program with the plenary session with our 5 keynote speakers. And we will proceed to the question and answer session. We will have a break for 35 minutes. Then we will move to the parallel session where the presenters and all participants will be assigned in breakout rooms. Before the closing, there will be very important announcement in which we will mention the best paper and the best speaker for this event. So ladies and gentlemen, before moving on further, let us all pray together. Pray start. Finish. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will sing our national anthem together. Thank you. The following is the welcome address from the Vice Rector for Cooperation and Institution Development Affairs. For Dr. Ellen Puspitasari, MSI, the time is yours.
Thank you, Grace FHB Arjanti, as a master ceremony. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me in this opportunity to welcome all of these conference participants by first praying our grateful and praise to the Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala Almighty for the abundance of grace and mercies that have made us possible together here in this virtual media in excellent condition and health. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to the respected lecturers and the incredible students, all participants, and a very special welcome to our speakers, Dr. Ganjar Harimansyah from Central Java Provincial Language Center, Assistant Professor Fasa Burapadeja, PhD from Assumption University, Mr. Jesse B. Opada from San Pedro College, Dr. Andes Lilik Supriya Atmaji, MPD from Universitas Tikubang, Mr. Maxim Kinepisi from English First. It is indeed a great honor and a pleasure to welcome you all to the second International Student Conference with the theme is Digital Learning in English Teaching, Linguistics, and Literature. I am, as a representative rector, would like to thank you to all speakers, moderator, guests, participants, chairperson, conference committee, and also Dr. Agnes Widyaningrum, SASPD MPD, as a Dean of Fakultas Hukum dan Bahasa Universitas Tikubang in Semarang. And I also gratefully thank to all members of Fakultas Hukum dan Bahasa and all sponsors that contribute to this conference. Rectorate of Universitas Tikubang fully support to this conference program. This student conference is a scientific work discussion forum which is expected to become a routine activity to increase the creativity of students and lecturers in dealing with the development of science, especially in the scope of the study of digital learning in English teaching, linguistics, and literature. I think digital learning by using digital facility is considered quite effective because it can help lecturers in building online classes according to learning conditions. Through digital learning, lecturers and students can overcome the barriers of place and time that can become obstacles to learning. In addition, with the use of digital learning platform like e-learning, lecturers can take advantage of several learning media such as YouTube, Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom, Webex maybe, and many more. So the lecturers must be creative and technology literate for goodness sake implementation of maximum learning. Well, I wish the conference completely success. To all of our distinguished guests, speakers, presenters, and participants, thank you for being here. Welcome and enjoy the conference. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Ellen. The following is the opening address from the Dean of the Faculty of Law and Language. For Dr. Agnes Widyaningrum, SE, SPD, MPD, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Bu Ellen, for warm welcome. Good morning, everybody. Healthy greetings. May peace be upon you all. The Honorable Vice Rector for Cooperation and Institution Development Affairs of Tikubang University, Dr. Ellen Puspitasari, SE, MSE. The Honorable Keynote Speakers, Dr. Ganjar Harimansyah, Kepala Balai Bahasa Jawa Tengah, Associate Professor Fasa Burapadeja, PhD, from Assumption University, Thailand, Maxine Kinpist from English First, JCB Opada from San Pedro College, Philippines, Dr. Andes Lili Supriyatma, GMPD from Sikubang University, Semarang. Good morning to our fellow lecturers of the English Literature Department, Faculty of Law and Language Studies, Sikubang University, who are willing to share their ideas and thoughts to this conference. Moreover, thank you for becoming the committee for this event. Good morning to our presenters and participants, and welcome. This conference organized by English Literature Department aimed at giving opportunity to the students to share their ideas, thoughts, and experience as part of global human resource. The topic that we proposed is digital learning in English teaching, linguistics, and literature. The topic of interest will be delivered by the distinguished keynote speakers who are ready to share their insightful ideas today in this lovely event. We are glad to inform all of you that there were 242 participants from UIN KH Abdurrahman Wahid Pekalongan, UPKRIS, Untak Surabaya, Universitas Syah Kuala Aceh, Universitas Tadulako Palu, Sulawesi Tengah, and also from the students from Unisbank University. And also there are 54 presenters today, 11 from Untak Surabaya and 1 from UPKRIS. Well, they are from across Indonesia, from different cities, districts, regions, provinces, and we do hope that there are some participants from abroad that can be here with us today. We are glad to have you here with us in this lovely event. By the end of this program, we will select one as the best presenter and the best paper among all of you. So, without further ado, I, as the Dean of the Faculty of Law and Language Studies of Sikubang University, would like to announce that by the blessing of God the Almighty, the second International Student Conference with the topic Digital Learning in English Teaching, Linguistics, and Literature is officially opened. Thank you. Back to Grace.
Thank you, Dr. Agnes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are all waiting for, the plenary sessions. I believe that we will learn a great deal from our speakers today. The moderator of the plenary session will be the Honorable Mr. Daniel. For Mr. Daniel, please kindly take it over. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today has been very lovely. And before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Albert Daniel, and I will be the moderator of today. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, the plenary session. Before we start, may I please remind you once again to please be engaged and be active, especially later on the Q&A session. But anyways, without further ado, let us start our plenary session today with the first keynote speaker, and it will be Dr. Gajar Hermansyah from Central Java Provincial Language Office. Now, he's an incredible person with also an incredible achievements. Can we please display it on the screen? To give a quick side note while we wait, Dr. Gajar Hermansyah has been the associate researcher since 2020 in February and until September, and he had also become the head chief of language and literature security from 2015 to 2020, and he was also the head chief of language and literature office of Central Java from August 2020 until now. So he's very experienced in the language and literature field. So I believe he will give an interesting insight, especially with the theme today is about digital-based blended learning, the development of knowledge and language and literature. So let's start it. Please welcome Dr. Gajar Hermansyah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Albert Daniel Arianto. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, rahayu, rahayu. Berbahagia sekali pada pagi ini. Saya diberi kesempatan dalam konferensi internasional untuk mahasiswa yang kedua ini yang diadakan oleh Unisbank, dan saya mohon izin Mas Albert Daniel dan Bapak Ibu semua menyampaikan paper saya dalam bahasa Indonesia. Dan saya tentunya sangat berterima kasih kepada Wakil Rektor Bidang Akademik dan Kerjasama Kemahasiswaan, Ibu Dr. Ellen Puspitasari, dan juga kepada Dekan Fakultas Hukum dan Bahasa, Ibu Dr. Agnes Widyaningrum, SE, SPD, MPD. Dan yang saya hormati para narasumber pembicara pada kesempatan kali ini, kepada Bapak Dr. Lilik Supriyatmaji, MPD, serta kawan-kawan semua. Pada kesempatan ini, saya akan menyampaikan seperti tadi yang disampaikan oleh Mas Albert Daniel, bahwa saya akan menyampaikan materi tentang pembelajaran campuran berbasis teknologi digital. Mohon maaf, sudah terlihatkah tayangan saya? Mas Daniel, sudah terlihat ya? Ya.
Sudah, Pak.
Sudah terlihat.
Materi yang saya sampaikan ini memang terkait dengan teknologi pendidikan, meskipun saya bukan ahlinya dalam hal ini, tetapi dari pengalaman tahun 2005 sampai 2009 melakukan penelitian tentang bahan ajar berbasis digital dan pengalaman menjadi validator ahli dalam berbagai media pembelajaran, saya memberanikan diri dalam konferensi ini menyajikan pembelajaran campuran berbasis teknologi digital, khususnya untuk mengembangkan wawasan linguistik dan sastra bagi mahasiswa. Rekan-rekan, Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, terkait dengan topik bahasan saya ada beberapa hal yang ingin saya sampaikan, terutama tentang konsep dan konteks perubahan yang kita jalani dalam perkembangan teknologi saat ini. Mungkin apa yang saya sampaikan ini pada tataran konsep dan gagasan ya. Jadi dalam hal ini saya tidak masuk ke aspek praktis dan teknis gitu. Oleh karena itu di awal pembicaraan ini saya ingin mengajak kembali kepada Bapak Ibu para peserta konferensi ini untuk melihat kembali tantangan teknologi digital yang kita hadapi saat ini. Mungkin yang saya sampaikan ini sudah Bapak Ibu ketahui semua. Seperti yang diprediksi oleh Negrofonte dalam buku Vein Digitalnya, saya kira saat ini kita sudah mengalaminya. Ya, 20 tahun lalu, Negrofonte meramalkan bahwa tahun 94 dia meramalkan. Di masa depan katanya kita akan mengenakan di pergelangan tangan apa yang kini di atas meja atau yang memenuhi rak-rak ruangan kerja kita. Tapi tidak sampai 20 tahun atau 30 tahun dari ramalan Negroponte ini, hal ini sekarang sudah terjadi. Dan kita tahu bahwa kemajuan teknologi digital ini melebihi kemajuan saat ditemukannya radio, TV, mesin, mobil, atau teknologi mesin lainnya. Pada masanya, pada waktu itu, radio, TV, mesin, dan sebagainya dianggap sebagai pembaharu dalam kehidupan kita. Tetapi ternyata sekarang teknologi digital mempercepat perubahan kehidupan di sekitar kita. Dan apalagi ketika pandemi COVID-19 kemarin melanda kita, secara tidak langsung kondisi itu tengah mentransformasi kebiasaan digital kita dari sekedar masyarakat luring atau digital imigran menjadi digital native. Kita jadi masyarakat online sekarang, masyarakat daring, gitu ya. Tidak saja generasi muda, tetapi generasi yang lebih sepuh dari kita juga sudah akrab dengan teknologi digital ini, gitu. Jadi istilah ada gap digital natif antar generasi sebenarnya mungkin hanya mitos, tetapi pada kenyataannya memang digital natif ini membedakan kembali masyarakat kita mana yang melek teknologi dan mana yang tidak, gitu. Kalau dulu teknologi itu identik dengan anak-anak muda dan sebagainya. Mungkin yang bermain Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, kemudian media sosial yang berbasis jaringan itu hanya generasi muda dan anak-anak, tetapi sekarang kita lihat eyang kita juga, sepupu-sepupu kita sudah akrab dengan media sosial itu. Oleh karena itu, mau tidak mau, kondisi digital natif kita ini menjadi tantangan di perguruan tinggi, menjadi tantangan rekan-rekan mahasiswa. Bagaimanapun kita harus bisa mengantisipasinya. Nah, sudahkah kita mengantisipasi tantangan era digital itu? Mari kita lihat. Kita pertama harus melihat bahwa perubahan konteks di era digital kita dalam pendidikan tinggi ini harus kita lihat sebagai sebuah perubahan yang niscaya, sebuah perubahan yang mau tidak mau harus kita hadapi. Kebutuhan perubahan di perguruan tinggi ini dari berbagai penelitian yang saya rangkum menjadi sebuah preferensi yang memang menjadi kebutuhan di perubahan. Ya, ini mungkin bisa menjadi masukan juga buat Ibu Ellen dan Ibu Agnes bahwa bagaimanapun teknologi digital kita mendorong kita untuk memikirkan ulang tentang berbagai pendekatan pembelajaran yang selama ini sudah kita praktikkan. Dan perkembangan digital natif atau teknologi digital juga seharusnya memancing perdebatan ilmiah. Tentunya perdebatan dalam konteks yang positif ya. Dan perdebatan itu bisa dipublikasikan dalam karya tulis ilmiah. Minimal di dalam jurnal-jurnal yang diterbitkan oleh perguruan tinggi. Dan yang pasti, ini tugas besar Bu Ellen nih, mengembangkan kerangka kerja atau cetak biru dalam praktik pengajaran daring. Kita perlu mengevaluasi kembali, misalnya selama era pandemi kita dipaksa menggunakan berbagai teknologi digital dalam pembelajaran kita. Apakah sudah efektif? Apakah bermanfaat dan aplikatif untuk mahasiswa itu sendiri? Nah, ini kebutuhan-kebutuhan perubahan di perguruan tinggi yang harus diantisipasi. Dan bagaimanapun generasi net, ini teman-teman mahasiswa ini masuk dalam golongan generasi net ini, mungkin termasuk Mas Daniel juga ya. Mari kita lihat, apakah benar penelitian dan asumsi dari Oblinger ini betul gitu. Generasi net ini mempunyai ciri, dan ciri-ciri ini memang harus diantisipasi oleh perguruan tinggi atau pendidikan tinggi. Biasanya teman-teman mahasiswa saat ini itu mempunyai keinginan kuat untuk ada dalam suatu jaringan, dalam suatu kelompok. Dan biasanya teman-teman kita mahasiswa ini tertarik lewat pendekatan tim. Mereka suka bergaul. Mereka suka nongkrong. Buktinya kafe-kafe kalau malam sering menjadi tempat berkumpul gitu. Tidak sekedar hanya makan minum, tetapi juga diskusi terjadi di sana. Ada diskusi yang serius, ada diskusi yang hanya ngaler ngidul lah istilahnya. Dan ini positifnya juga, teman-teman mahasiswa sekarang itu cenderung suka belajar dengan menemukan dan melakukan sesuatu, eksplorasi gitu. Dan ini tipe belajarnya juga sejalan karena mereka itu tipe pembelajaran visual dan kinestesik gitu. Jadi dia komunikator visual dan suka aktivitas fisik. Jadi kalau hanya ngendon saja itu menjenuhkan bagi teman-teman mahasiswa sekarang. Dan tentunya teman-teman mahasiswa ini Mas Daniel dan kawan-kawan ini tentunya begitu cepat mengantisipasi perubahan teknologi gitu ya. Dengan cepat beralih dari hal-hal yang tidak menarik ya dan tidak relevan dengan dunia mereka ya cepat beralih gitu. Dan ini terkait juga dengan sifat hedonisme. Hedonisme tidak selalu berasumsi negatif ya. Hedonisme artinya teman-teman mahasiswa ini karena tertarik mempelajari hal-hal yang penting saja, jadi mereka lebih fokus ke hal-hal yang sifatnya terlihat nyata, gitu, abstrak, gitu. Coba mungkin teman-teman mahasiswa rasakan kalau ini nggak penting-penting amat, gue tinggalin aja gitu ya. Kalau tidak terlalu memperlihatkan dampak yang nyata saat itu, ngapain gue jalani gitu ya. Mending yang hadapi saja yang ada di hadapan kita dan nyata hasilnya dan cepat. Nah, negatifnya biasanya selalu ingin mendapatkan hasil cepat gitu. Kadang kurang menikmati proses gitu. Nah, ini preferensi pembelajaran generasi net ini juga menjadi sebuah tantangan di pendidikan tinggi kita gitu. Pengalaman saya membimbing mahasiswa baik skripsi, disertasi maupun tesis ya, memang pada saat ini mahasiswa ini kurang menikmati proses itu gitu. Nah, ini memang tantangan sendiri bagi perguruan tinggi, para dosen dan juga mahasiswa itu sendiri. Nah, biasanya saya menganjurkan di masa orientasi mahasiswa baru ini preferensi perubahan pembelajaran yang sedang dialami mahasiswa itu patut juga diperkenalkan oleh para dosen. Selama ini mungkin kita dituntut untuk belajar dengan tekun, belajar dengan baik, tapi kita jarang diajak atau diberitahu oleh para dosen kita bagaimana sih cara belajar yang baik itu gitu ya. Seperti itu. Nah, oleh karena itu saya mengajak kepada para partisipan dalam konferensi ini untuk melihat kembali, meskipun baru tataran teoritis, bagaimana sih pembelajaran campuran berbasis digital ini di perguruan tinggi bisa mengembangkan wawasan linguistik dan sastra kita. Dan pada nantinya bisa berkontribusi untuk memberi gambaran kepada para mahasiswa bidang profesional apa sih yang akan digeluti oleh mereka. Dan tentunya ini menjadi kritik juga bagi para dosen atau penyelenggara pendidikan tinggi bahwa benarkah pembelajaran yang selama ini didengung-dengungkan sudah menggunakan teknologi digital itu betul-betul diterapkan dan sudah benarkah pembelajaran itu holistik, tidak parsial gitu. Benarkah media yang kita gunakan ini memberi stimulan, memberi rangsangan kepada para mahasiswa untuk berpikir kritis gitu ya. Nah, kalau sekedar hanya memindahkan perkuliahan yang berbentuk ceramah dengan bermediakan Zoom atau bermediakan konferensi web yang lain, saya kira ini belum menukik ke esensi dari pembelajaran berbasis teknologi digital itu. Oleh karena itu, dalam pembelajaran bahasa atau sastra berbasis teknologi digital ini ada berbagai sarana yang perlu dilibatkan. Oleh karena itulah disebutnya blended learning gitu, pembelajaran campuran. Hal ini yang tidak bisa dihindari sekarang baik oleh para guru maupun dosen gitu. Dan konsep-konsep yang diakomodasi dalam pembelajaran campuran dengan memanfaatkan berbagai media digital ini sangat banyak, terutama tentang pemberian konteks dalam pembelajaran itu kepada mahasiswa. Media digital yang digunakan harus sesuai dengan konteks sosial dan budaya serta kebutuhan dan tantangan mahasiswa. Dan yang terpenting, ada berbagai perubahan paradigma pembelajaran bahasa dan sastra di era teknologi digital saat ini, yang tentunya berbeda dengan ciri-ciri model pembelajaran konvensional yang sudah lama kita tinggalkan. Bapak, Ibu, para partisipan yang saya hormati, dalam pembelajaran campuran ini memang kenapa sekarang banyak digaung-gaungkan, terutama ketika masa pandemi ini, karena memang dianggap lebih efektif, lebih praktis. Dan secara tidak langsung pembelajaran ini sudah menggabungkan pembelajaran secara luring dan daring. Dan bagaimanapun konsep dari pembelajaran bahasa ini tentunya memerlukan sumber daya yang bisa digunakan dalam praktiknya. Oleh karena itu saya memberi contoh, nanti mungkin rekan-rekan peserta konferensi ini juga bisa membaca makalah utuh saya tentang bagaimana pemanfaatan sumber daya dalam web untuk mengembangkan wawasan dan linguistik sastra mahasiswa kita. Nah, seperti yang kita ketahui, berbagai macam sarana sumber daya konferensi web sudah banyak kita manfaatkan, dari mulai Zoom sampai live sites, dan mungkin ini teman-teman belum mencoba ya, Blue Jean by Verizon itu. Wah, ini sangat menarik juga. Atau yang dengan fitur yang lebih menantang, Cisco misalnya, ini juga namun yang populer di Indonesia memang hanya Zoom gitu ya. Kemudian ini saya mengajak teman-teman bagaimana dalam pembelajaran campuran berbasis digital ini kolaborasi antara dosen dan mahasiswa memanfaatkan blog, ya. Baik blog yang sudah tersedia dengan template tertentu, kemudian kita membuat sebuah grup, ataupun menggunakan blog-blog khusus yang tentang misalnya pengembangan wawasan linguistik atau kebahasaan teman-teman, terutama dalam peningkatan kemampuan atau kompetensi berbahasa Inggrisnya. Ini saya contohkan beberapa blog yang memang mengajak kita juga di samping memperluas wawasan linguistik juga mengasah kemahiran berbahasa Inggris rekan-rekan semua. Seperti Linguist Research Digest, tentunya ini atau The Linguist List ini juga banyak menyajikan artikel-artikel jurnal berbahasa Inggris yang menarik dan bisa menjadi inspirasi rekan-rekan jika akan membuat skripsi atau karya tulis. Atau teman-teman yang suka menulis dalam karya sastra, atau misalnya Bu Agnes mengampu mata kuliah penulisan kreatif dalam bahasa Inggris, oke, kita gunakan situs-situs web yang sudah tersedia, misalnya yang terkenal kan Wattpad ya. Jadi nanti mahasiswa Bu Agnes itu tidak sekedar karyanya hanya dibaca oleh Bu Agnes, tetapi juga dibaca oleh khalayak yang membaca Wattpad. Bahkan penilaian portofolio dari Bu Agnes untuk mahasiswa yang menulis bisa lihat juga dari komen-komen dan dari pembaca di Wattpad itu. Gitu. Nah, siapa tahu nanti fenomena keterkenalan Eriska Febriani juga bisa muncul di Unisbank, seperti teman Unisbank juga ada yang cukup banyak pembacanya di sini. Jadi ada dampak juga yang dampak berkelanjutan. Nah, contoh aplikasi.
Okay, so here's my essay, and I'm going to click through Grammarly suggestions in the right panel.
Misalnya ini contoh Grammarly ya, mungkin
Your sentence may be unclear or hard to follow. Consider rephrasing. That's true.
Apakah
This is much better.
sudah sering
I didn't know my writing contained so many run-on sentences until I started using Grammarly.
Untuk mengecek
This paragraph may be too long. Consider starting a new one here.
Atau tidak, saya sangat terbantu sekali dengan
And that
Grammarly ini. Baik
is
yang
the perfect spot to break it up.
maupun yang gratis.
Let's add
Jadi Ini contoh-contoh web kepenulisan yang bisa digunakan oleh mahasiswa gitu. Dan ini saya juga ingin memperlihatkan bagaimana keinterdisiplineran ilmu kebahasaan sekarang juga mendorong bidang-bidang pekerjaan yang bisa digeluti oleh mahasiswa yang bergelut di bidang bahasa maupun pembelajarannya. Mungkin di Indonesia ahli kriptoanalisis ini belum banyak digeluti. Kalau di Amerika sana dan terutama di Cina ya, yang saya pernah mengunjungi badan intelijen di sana, ternyata sarjana-sarjana lulusan bahasa itu banyak dimanfaatkan oleh badan intelijen di sana, terutama untuk ahli kriptoanalisis. Dan sekarang ilmu linguistik forensik juga sedang berkembang, bagaimana tatanan hukum kita memerlukan saran kepakaran kita di bidang linguistik, terutama linguistik forensik ya. Ini bidang-bidang karir teman-teman yang bisa digeluti. Apalagi sekarang kreator konten ya, konten kreator. Ini sudah sangat banyak sekali digeluti oleh teman-teman. Dan mungkin ini juga jarang dilirik oleh teman-teman, tetapi ini bisa menjadi refleksi teman-teman bahwa inilah bidang keprofesionalan Anda setelah lulus nanti yang bisa digeluti. Misalnya ahli patologi bicara, kemudian pengembangan kecerdasan buatan ya, intelligence artificial. Ini membutuhkan pemikiran dan kepakaran rekan-rekan dari lulusan bahasa dan sastra. Apalagi Anda mempunyai kelebihan dalam kompetensi bahasa Inggrisnya. Jadi bidang profesi Anda tidak terbatas di Indonesia saja, tetapi juga di luar negara kita. Jadi itu Mas Daniel yang bisa saya paparkan. Semoga apa yang saya sampaikan ini setidaknya membuka wawasan kita bersama betapa pembelajaran kita perlu melakukan refleksi dan terutama bagaimana pembelajaran kita bisa mengarahkan para mahasiswa untuk menekuni profesi sesuai bidang kepakarannya. Terima kasih, thank you very much. Mohon maaf jika banyak kesalahan dalam paparan ini. Semoga berkenan dan bermanfaat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Can we all first give applause to Dr. Kejar for the very interesting insight. What I needed to highlight, yang mau saya highlight itu adalah tadi ada banyak sekali cara untuk blended learning ini, dan itu mengingatkan saya kepada pelajaran Bu Agnes karena beliau juga sudah menggunakan Wattpad, Grammarly dan lain-lain untuk mengajar. Jadi menurut saya itu sangat menarik. After this, we will take picture first, everyone. So please turn your camera on because yeah, but after the plenary session, we will also take another picture. So please turn your camera on. Okay, start. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I think we can move on to the second keynote speaker, which is a very interesting one. Our second speaker of today will be Associate Professor Fasa Burapadeja from Assumption University. Now, he's very wonderful and incredible, and he has so much achievements that I will not be able to mention it one by one, but some of the key achievements he had is that he graduated from the Doctor of Philosophy in University of Florida in 2010, and he also has gained many honors. One of it is including 2015 St. Martin de Tours Award for Excellence in Performance in Assumption University. Not only that, he also has many experience. One of it is being the Department of Digital Business Management in Martin de Tours School of Management and Economics in Assumption University, Bangkok, Thailand, from June 2020 up to present. So, and the theme of the discussion today will be technology in language teaching, challenges after the pandemic. I think it is very interesting. So I guess without further ado, Associate Professor Pasa, the time and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Everyone can see the screen clearly, right?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So thank you for having me today. Vice Rector of Academics and Student Affairs, Dean of Law and Language, faculty members, and students participating in this event. Good morning. Today, I am going to discuss about the challenges after the pandemic. And the presentation is broken down into 3 segments as follows. The first is the landscape of learning models before and after COVID, the benefit of technologies in teaching and learning in general, and lastly, some case studies, including technologies. Some has already been mentioned by our previous speakers, but I would like to just touch upon some of those as well. So let's begin with the first topic, the landscape of learning models. So we all know that we have traditional learning, which everyone has experienced before the pandemic. After that, once we have technologies, we have digital technologies, then we start using those technologies within our classroom, maybe outside, maybe we have students learning something outside the class, but not compulsory, so it's not required. But then when we talk about blended learning, which is the has caught attentions in the world around, like I think 20-15 years ago, and people start really gravitate toward these models. Blended learning requires both in class and outside, okay, which I will talk a little bit more later. Lastly, it's the fully online. So everything happened online. This might be good for some certain populations. And the next one is the high-flex models, which is the new model emerging after the COVID. This is a model that people have been talking about for quite some time, but it never really caught on until the COVID hit. So let's go into the detail of the fully online learning. This is one of the best practices that I have seen. This is from one of the sessions that I attended some time ago during the pandemic, when the speaker from the US talked about how he ran the course in his university. This is the example of the master degree levels that attract students through like all parts of the country. And we all that United States is really large, and they have like maybe 200 students in the class. You can see that in this studio, there are 2 teachers. These 2 teachers didn't really control much of the equipment. They have keyboards, they have mouses, they have mice, just only that. The rest are done by the TA behind the scene. So there are 4 panels on like in front of them. The top left is the focus student that might be talking to the teachers. The top right is the running note that came from the TAs. So basically TA is monitoring the conversation on the background, maybe in the chat rooms, and they just summarize all those interesting questions and pop them up on the screen for the teachers to discuss, because the teacher cannot monitor everything at once, right? The bottom right is, the bottom left, sorry, is the slides of the teachers. The bottom right is the gallery, just like what we have here, but they can kind of flip through 25 students at a time. So basically they can see the moods of the classroom all the time, right? So this is what we call like a tech-free zone for the teacher. So they go into the class, but they didn't really have to control much because there are people helping behind the scene. This is like one of the best fully online that I've seen. It doesn't have to go this far, okay, if you don't have equipment, but there are so many best practices that you can do online, including like introducing yourselves. And like one thing that I really like is like if you have the online class, the first thing you could do is like show them your house, like house tour. It kind of give your student a sense of like belonging, and it gives a personal touch to the class. The next one is the blended learning, which most of you, I believe that most of you are familiar with. It's like a back and forth between online and face-to-face. In a way, you might have heard about flipped classroom. This is also sort of like a hybrid model as well, okay, hybrid or blended models. The example of the hybrid and blended model would be something like you begin the class by assigning students to do some work, maybe review some of the materials and work on some quizzes, right? When they get into the class, they work on the discussion, interaction, because that is the best part that you can do in the classroom. It is way better than giving lecture because students can interact and they have already prepared from the time before they attend the class. After the class, there might be some session of the knowledge checkings and some quizzes to work on the higher order thinking, maybe some collaborative online. Okay, so this is like a hybrid model that people are now using. But what exactly is a high flex model, which is the new model emerging from the pandemic? This model has been around for more than 10 years. People start talking about it, but it never really caught on because there was no need to have these models. During the pandemic, everyone was excited about student and teacher have to be basically forced into doing online learning. And essentially, it's more or less like this. I'm sure that many of you have seen the memes spreading around online that look like this. At the beginning of the semester, you were really excited about the new semester and you planned really well. And then sometime during the beginning, the COVID pandemic happened. So at the end of the semester, it looked just like that. And the final is even worse, right? Because everyone needs to think about how can we conduct the online exam, which many of us never done it in such a large scale before. So it was such a disaster. However, with this, the media start calling this experience online learning. And many organizations start to worry about it because it's not essentially online learning. The correct term should be emergency remote instruction because everyone has been pushed to do online without any preparation. In particular, the National Council of Online Learning, Online Education in the US, they have an open letter to the media urging them not to use the term online learning anymore because this undermines the research that has been going on for more than 20 years. The best practice in online learning has been there, but when we were forced to do online within like 1 week or within days, right? That is not going to follow the best practices. So after the pandemic, the new model is high flex or hybrid flexibles. This is the example of the room for conducting a high flex models. We have a whiteboard camera, we have the in-room monitoring system for the remote student. Most of you who start using sort of like a high flex, I'm not sure any of you have experienced that, but as a teacher, if you conduct the high flex without any equipment, maybe you have one computer open for the student that coming in from outside, it's very likely that you would just forget about them. So the high flex model is gearing toward having the same opportunity for students from anywhere at the same time. Okay, that's why they call it hybrid flexible. Some students might be joining the class on campus today, and then the next week they have some family emergencies. They have to do it online. They should be able to do it at any mode that they want to throughout the semester. So it's pretty challenging to have this model. And I think that some university about talking about or thinking about fitting the rooms to match this requirement. But of course, it requires a lot of investment. And so this is the new model that is emerging during the pandemic. And so this is the overview of the past and present instruction models. The next part is about benefit of technology in teaching and learning in general. The first one is the list of benefits that we all aware of. I hope. First of all, the technology will keep staff and students updated and connected. Right? We have the chat. We have discussion board. All those are helping student and teacher to connect with each other. The second thing, which probably one of the best things, it reduced paperwork. The third one is it offered the new model of learning. For example, with the mobile app, you are now being able to put some small segment of the teaching of the learning material to the student. That is the thing we now know of micro learning. The fourth one, it enables collaboration among students. It improves knowledge retention, which kind of tie with the micro learning as well. The next one is it accommodates children with special needs. For example, people are now talking about developing a new online learning for students with disabilities, because this probably going to gear toward a certain group of populations. The last one, many of the learning management system now allow another type of account that can be signed on to the system called guardian account. So parents can join. I think Canvas, I'm not sure about Moodle, but some able to do this. But these are the general benefits. In my opinion, there are two benefits that I like to share with the teacher and fellow students. Most of the time when we talk about like how can we integrate technology into classroom and what's the benefit, it boils down to just two things. The first thing is it reduces administrative work. Think about the online courses that you set up. If you do it properly, students can learn, you can check their knowledge. At the same time, students have immediate feedback. So it's like for both sides, teachers have less work to do. In the long run, students can get feedback quickly, right? In this case, you can see that in Moodle, I believe that you at the university, you guys use Moodle. You can see that the teacher can show the real-time scoring. And I did this in class. The nice thing is that the theory that we learn about statistics, like the normal curve, when we have enough population, when we have enough sample size, it's really emerged from this graph. Okay, if you have students doing the work, maybe 100 students, you can see the graph starting to look like a bell curve. And so that is like before our eyes. Students can see the progress, can see the results right away. If you want this to be like a learning session or the learning activity for students, you can allow them to do it multiple times so that they can correct their mistakes. Another example is it's the same thing. It's reduced administrative work, but this is done with the H5P module. It's the interactive content that can be plugged into modules. I was working with the language teacher in our English language center, and he was thinking about how can he transform the paper-based practices into an online learning that students can practice again and again. So traditionally, it used to be like a paper that students need to mark the incorrect words or the incorrect grammar of each line, right? And we came up with this solution. So basically, you can mark the word on each line, or you can type the wrong word, or you can type the word that need correction, and you can check right away. and the system can collect information. So at the end of the day, you can see that how many students did the work, how many of them did it more than one time, and have more effort on this. So this is also an example of transferring the face-to-face, transferring the traditional into the online learning. And it's free. S5P is free and can be integrated into most of the learning management system. And the second benefit that I usually share with the team is technology help teachers see learning happen before their eyes. It makes learning visible for them. In the learning management system, there is a thing called log report. You can access that. You can see how many students access a certain part of the course, and which means you know how many students access a certain thing, whether they did the work on time or late, and whether they visit the forum, on what did they do in the forums. And for the student, the benefit is they can access learning 24/7. And with this, we did the analysis back like a decade ago. We collect all the log. The log is like a click of the system that the student perform, right? So every click of the web page they collect, and then they count it as one record. So we did that, and we tally all the information for 2 semesters back in 2012, and you can see that we expect the traffic of the website to be high during the day. That is not surprise, but we were quite surprised that even at the night time at 9 p.m. it became peak again. Okay, so we can tell that students are learning throughout the day and into the night. Okay, so this was a nice surprise that we found back then. And we keep monitoring this using Google Analytics, so we can tell whether the traffic is high or low at a certain period of time. So that are quite unique. And the first one is it reduces the work, it reduces administrative work. The second thing is it makes learning visible. Right. So what are the technology in the learning language in particular? The first one, I'm going to go through a couple of the examples that I really like. The first one is reading and writing. So imagine you want to teach students to read the books, and you want them to critique on the books, and you want them to have a better experience on, like, after reading this book. This was the examples of the activities. After reading the Sadako and Thousand Paper Crane, one of the famous books, what can we do after this? Right. The first thing is you can ask students to go online and search for the instruction to make a paper crane, okay, to fold a paper into a crane. So students need to learn the language, learn the instruction how to do that online. And even better, you ask them to design origami out of it. Okay, so like building on that, making it more advanced. And a little bit further than that, you can ask students to create an artifact, create a photo book, how to fold origami. So now you are creating content, you're asking students to create content. And back to the language itself, you might want them to go online and go to Amazon and see what people are talking about this book, how they interact with each other, because right now Amazon allows reader to not only review, but also interact with other reviewers, like whether the review is helpful or not, right? So at the paramount of this, if the student can read, can make a paper crane, can critique on others' reviews on Amazon, you would want them to actually do a review and post it on Amazon. Right? So this is like at the end goal, you want them to participate and you want them to have their thought out in the public, right? If their post if their review get a thumbs up from other readers from Amazon, that would be a really great morale boost for them to learn. Right? So this is like a whole series of things that you can do after the class. The second one came from our teacher in Assumption University. She gave a talk to our school about 2 years ago, and I really like her approach. She said the way that she conducted the class was using whole person approach. And the first thing that she did was she is Japanese, so she have some connection with back in Japan. Basically, she asked for sponsorship from a software company back in Japan. It was like a Skype, but it was like a Japanese software. So she had that available for her student. The second thing is that she asked her student who learned Japanese to connect with elderly in the nursing home back in Japan. So folks in the nursing home having their free times and students want to learn language, she basically connects these two groups of participants together. And they share knowledge, they talk about the culture, they exchange different thinking about different country, right? So the folks in Japan learn new things, get to know some young adult, and they have something to do during the day. And to her surprise, she said that after the class, many of the students became attached to all those elderly, and they came up to her and they show her with the postcard that they want to send to the nursing home. Okay, so this was like a nice touch after the class. And this whole concept is called whole person approach. Her name is Mika. She was one of a very good teacher in our school. So these are two examples that you can build your instruction around technologies. All right, now I'm going to go into some new technology that some of you might already aware of, but I hope this will be a really nice revision of all those new technology emerged during the past years. Not long ago, I think last year, Microsoft PowerPoint has launched a new feature called, and with this, you can present in front of the computer. And if you allow real-time feedback from the computer, it will stop and it will sort of like give you a real-time feedback. For example, if you say it will warn you right away. If the pace is good, it will say that, okay, keep up the good work. If you use non-inclusive language, this is a big thing now, right? If you use, we don't say chairman, we say chairperson. We don't say man, we don't say policeman, we say police officer, for example, because we want to be inclusive. And Microsoft really take on this issue. So Microsoft also have this feature in the AI called like inclusive language detector. And with all this, at the end of the rehearsal, you get a really nice summary as a dashboard. This is an example. The presentation was done in 9 minutes, 12 slides. The pitch, the average pitch, is it good? Well, it's not so great for this round, right? It's a little bit below. For the pace, like how fast you speak, it's quite, most of the time it's fine, but there was some time that it's too fast, sometimes it's too slow. Okay, the pace is about 193 per minute, I believe. Okay, so this is a summary page of these tools. And this is one thing that you can do. The second thing, as already presented by the previous speaker, is the Grammarly. We all know what it is. And now Microsoft is proud of being best of the best. So they launched what we call editor. It's the AI editor, which does exactly the same thing as Grammarly. But you can see that Grammarly presents itself as a sort of like not the editor, but sort of like a proofreader, right? Grammarly works as a proofreader, but the Microsoft feature is considered itself an editor. So it sort of like trying to be better than the Grammarly, and it has all of the feature exactly the same as Grammarly, And if you already subscribe for Microsoft Office 365, you already have this. But the nice thing about Grammarly though is that if you subscribe a premium version, they will summarize all the mistakes. And as mentioned in the video from the previous session, it kind of gives you a rundown of what are the mistakes that you made. And for example, this was my weekly email summary. I have a weakness in articles and missing comma. That was my thing. So I learned really quickly after using this system. Right? So these are the things that AI can do for us. Now, another thing about Grammarly and editor from Microsoft Word is that you might think that all these things going to help you. You might think that things like this editor going to help students learn, and also things like Turnitin going to help we reduce cheating or reduce like plagiarisms. But it's good news and bad news actually, because Turnitin is one of the great invention for teacher, right? But at the same time, you might not know that now there's a thing called paraphrasing tools. And it wasn't really big on education though. I've learned recently that it's really big in e-commerce community. The reason is because in e-commerce, you want to get the content out quickly and you don't want to plagiarize anyone's work. So basically you use spin rewriter to like change the writing styles, paraphrasing the work, and then you can put maybe your product, you want to have like description of the product, right? You put it there. And the bad news is that Turnitin cannot detect this yet. And I doubt that it will. All right, so Turnitin would help at a certain level, but it cannot compete with paraphrasing tools. And I learned this a hard way, because when I teach the class and I have a student, I ask the class to do like some writing work, and most of them turn to popular one in Thailand. It's called Quillbot. It's one of the good ones though. So most of the students just jump into Quillbot and just like cut and pasting. So I was really surprised that they did that. So this is a technology that is probably going to undermine student learning if we don't use it properly, right? And with Grammarly, Duolingo, most of you know Duolingo already. Khan Academy have a lot of activity online. Quillbot is one that I've learned the hard way. And in my area of technology, there is also a code academy, which helps students learn how to code. So with all these learning tools, what is our role, right? Are we still relevant? Parents might come to us and say that I don't want my kids to learn with you guys anymore, because we can learn from all this AI, and they are way smarter than you guys. They never make mistake. They don't spend hours to grade because they give feedback instantly. So what is our role? Right? This is a really hard question that we have to answer as the teachers. So most of the time, I like to draw to this story. We all know that IBM has built a computer that can beat Grandmaster chess. And we know that later, Google has created an AI that can beat Go Master. So we would never compete with computer. But Gary Kasparov, one of the grandmaster that has been beaten by Deep Blue from IBM, he created another league, another chess competition called Advanced Chess. And in this tournament, each player is equipped with a computer. So this is one of the first female advanced chess in the world. And you can see that both of them have computer at their desk. So basically they can compete against each other, and they have computer to consult. And I really like this quote saying, an average player paired with average computer can beat a supercomputer. So you have the experience, computer have the speed, right? You need to work with them. So going back to the previous examples, if you think that the spin writer, if you think that the Grammarly gonna beat you, gonna take work away from you, actually, if you work with them, right, you can learn from them. For example, the paraphrasing tool. I was thinking that maybe next round before I go to class, I would ask students to try to paraphrase by themselves, and then try to use the tool for the second round and see what the difference, compare the work, their work and the AI work. And then the paraphrasing tool is really good because it allows you to choose the word, like to replace. So when I was in the class, typically I ask students to look at the words that the AI suggests and see if it matches with the context. Okay, so we discuss about those things. Basically, we ask AI to be sort of like teaching assistant for our class. And this is important that we think of computer not as a competitor, but as a co-player in our classroom. Another thing that I've seen a lot when we talk about using technology in classroom is that we sometimes place the technology in front of the teaching, in front of the instruction. And this was the poster that has been going on like more than 15 years, I believe. It says, it's a reminder that I used to show to the teacher all the time. It says, what do you want kids to do with technology? The keyword is with technology. We're not teaching them technology, we're teaching them content, but we use technology to help. So back in the day, there was a thing called Prezi, and the blog was really a big thing back then. Wordle is to create a word cloud. These are technology that was really popular back then. And people, when they talk about technology, sometimes they get excited about using all this tool, but they didn't really think through what they want to use this to help students learn. And it should have been a lesson learned, but in fact, during the pandemic, in our community in Thailand, high school teachers, university teachers, they gathered together in a Facebook group. It grew 1,000 members within a few weeks on the pandemic. And I start to see the pattern again. Teachers start talking about how to use Zoom, how to use Google Classroom, how to use, it's even talking about how to set up the green screen and lighting, and produce video, how to get, and like even further, some of them are really good at like equipment. They talk about how to buy equipment, how to set up gear and tripod, and how to make a studio. But not many people talk about how to actually deliver instruction online. So we are confusing about technology and learning, right? So these are two different things, right? So I want to leave the session with the thought that are we teaching technology itself, or are we using technology to help students learn? This is the hard question that we have to follow, because we see the pattern emerge again and again, that when we talk about technology, we just like too excited about it, and we stop thinking about how can we deliver instruction. So the last one is the bonus slide here. Since you guys use Moodle in your university, this was the tables that I adapted from someone else, but it came from the experience as well. So you can see that the pedagogy is the blue rows on top. Sometimes we just want to share the work with the students. Sometimes we want to just deliver information, but sometimes we want to access learning. We want to assess learning with the student. Sometimes we want them to interact and communicate, right? So that's the top rows, the columns. And these are on the rows header. These are the tools or the feature that is available in Moodle. So if it match in green, it means this is a good thing. If you want to add the file, it's ease of use, it's allowed sharing information, but adding files in folder is not going to help assess learning for the student, of course. And the last example here, like sometimes you want to assess learning, assignment is good, right? It's good for assessing learning. It's good for this one. So this is another example that you can do like the grid and match the different feature in Moodle to help students learn in different levels. Okay, so this is all I have, and I hope it is useful, and it's hopefully it's a reminder for us all that we are not teaching technology, we are teaching with technologies. Okay, thank you very much.
Can we all first give applause to Associate Professor Fasa? Because I think the message in this is interesting. As everyone also knows, we are all using Moodles here. That's true. I even memorized the orange logo. And I think the main point is very interesting. It's that we are teaching with the technology and we're not teaching the technology. I think that's very interesting. Okay. Once again, a very interesting message. And yeah. So before we begin the next session with the next speaker, can I please remind that all the presenters and participants that there will be a parallel session after around 12 o'clock, and please check your chat box because the rundown and the breakout room distribution has been shared in the chat box. So please check it, everyone. Okay, now let's move on to the next speaker. Our third speaker today will be Mr. Jesse B. Opada from San Pedro University. He also had great achievements. He had become the Student Publication Technical Advisor and also the Communications and Media Relations Officer in San Pedro College since 2016 until present. So please, Mr. Jesse B. Opada, the time and the screen is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you. Once again, good morning to everyone. Assalamualaikum. Greetings of peace from the Pearl of the Orient Seas in the Philippines. No, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. So I'll be the third speaker for this. I'll be the third speaker for this conference, and I am very glad and honored to be preceded, by Professor Ganjar and Professor Vasa, who have given so much for this morning about our course theme for this particular student conference, and they are making my job easier for this morning. Thank you very much, professors. So, particularly in San Pedro College, aware, the technology has been part of human evolution and society's expansion and development. From having them as a luxury in the past, that only few can afford, up to the times that we think that technology already a part of us. And where do we start introducing and learning the essence of technology and teaching people to be responsible consumers of technology? So that, of course, apart from our homes, will be taught in the four corners of the classroom. So for this morning, again, I'll be talking about digital learning activities that we do here in the Philippines, mostly here in our school setup. So digital teaching and learning tools have been around for quite some time, and but they gained popularity and the need for them in the times when we were isolated from the outside world because of the pandemic. So the demand for an increase in internet speed was audible, from the people. Upgrading the basic home computers became a trend and a need in order to cope with the teaching learning modalities. So teachers and students alike stepped up their skills in navigating digital platforms and resources. In short, we adapted, we thrived, and we survived. So there has been a paradigm shift in education, especially in the context of pandemic. No, we've been talking about for decades already about the paradigm shift in education, but here in the Philippines, we realize what do we mean by paradigm shift in education, especially on the idea of blended learning when we were hit, no, by this pandemic. We realized that this is it. This is the time that we shift, no, our paradigm and our ideas and ideals in education. So here, just to give you a context, no, during this time of the pandemic, there was a notable number of private school students transferring to public schools, according to the data gathered by the Department of Education here in the Philippines before the start of the academic year 2020-2021. It was estimated around 39 students schools, no? During the school year opening of August 2020, that is the height of the pandemic. DepEd reported that around 380,000 students made the choice to transfer from a private to a public school. And I think we know the reason behind this because, of course, number one, the affordability of technology, especially for distance learning and blended learning, because again, we were caught off guard, especially here in the Philippines, that not all our students or schools are technically prepared for blended learning or even distance learning. And why did they transfer from private schools to public schools? Because in the public schools, they have a very minimal requirement when it comes to technology, especially in the pandemic form of education. We only had learning manuals, no, printed materials, printed lessons that will be delivered to the homes of the students or that will be retrieved from the schools, and then the students will just answer using pen and paper. No, while in the private school context, we had this online learning, no, wherein the students have to purchase different technologies and even especially internet connection. And here in the Philippines, it's not that cheap, no, to have internet connection or even these technologies, and thus the statistics says, no, many students transferred from private to public institutions because of the pandemic. So yes, here are some of the digital learning activities that we explored and experienced that are mostly effective to both teachers and students. So we have this in the classroom context. We have to remember that as future educators, or let's say as current educators, or those who wish to be educators in the future or facilitators of learning, it is very important that we have to prepare ourselves. No, we have to design online activities because there are a vast array of online technologies available that can help enhance learning activities. But it is very important to carefully select the ones that are most appropriate for your class learning outcomes. There are, again, a lot of learning and online technologies, but only few will be selected once we start designing online activities that will cater to the specific needs of our students. So it is critical to remember that internet is part of our everyday life and has become teaching to reflect and acknowledge activities. We have to introduce online activity to a class can offer many, introducing online activity to a class can offer many benefits to teachers and students. However, often relies on how appropriate the activity and the chosen technology are for the learning context and how well both are integrated into the learning process. So it is very important that for online and teaching experience to be effective, there should be a strong alignment between the intended learning outcomes and the activities that will help develop students' achievement of these outcomes. So how you choose activity, which activity and associated technology to use can depend on a number of factors. One, the intended learning outcomes for the course. We have to plan first. No, what are we targeting? No, for the students to learn, so that we'll know what technology, what platforms to associate or to use for this particular lesson. The student situation, we in the during the height of the pandemic, we conducted several surveys. How many students do have stable internet connection? How many students do have this particular specifications of laptops or computers that can accommodate online learning? Because we have to understand their situation, because we cannot give digital learning activities if they do not have these specific needs. We have to consider the location, access to the internet, and the number of students in the class, and etc. The learning experiences or technical requirements of the course content are also very important, especially for teachers. What are the right tools that the learning materials that are we going to use? And of course, the breadth and depth of teachers' previous online experience. So yes, we already have the technologies. Students are already prepared to do online activities or digital learning activities. But there's this one more problem. Some of the teachers are not ready to be, or are not online ready, or are not digitally teaching ready. So we had to consider that as well, and we had to conduct different workshops, learning activities as well for the teachers, so that of course they will know how to use these platforms. Because we have this famous belief, that we cannot give what we do not have. So it is also very important for teachers, if you would like to advocate for digital learning, to be also aware and be familiar with the digital tools available. All right. Next. Sorry. Yeah. We have to choose appropriate technologies. How education these days, we particularly help us, to the different type of activities appropriate for that. I'm not going to discuss them anymore now, because we don't have that the time for this. But anyways, I want you to look at this. We consider the Bloom's taxonomy in order to identify what are the appropriate digital tools, activities are we going to give to this particular subject or particular lesson. So there are researches, as presented as well by our previous speakers. This one is from McKinsey and Company. This gave us an idea that higher education institutions has leveraged technology to improve the aspects of the learning experience during the pandemic. There are prominent technologies that enabled change in the classroom or in the blended or distance learning. So as you can see, we have here, despite of not seeing the students face to face, we were still able to enhance teaching and learning relationships and even experiences. For example, we have here group work. So the students learn to collaborate virtually with other students, or even teachers collaborated with other faculty or administrators. Connectivity and community building. So tools to engage with one another, instructors and course materials, we maximize them. And that also helped us to streamline the information that we would like to give to our students. Augmented reality reality or even simulations, at home, we were able to learning management systems and even AI adapted course delivery or AI technologies that were also present. Hello, I'm sorry. I think I got out from the meeting. No, I'm sorry because proceed. Am I still audible? Give me a thumbs up if I'm still audible. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
All right. I think I have to
You're audible,
disable
sir.
for now my video so that I can discuss further. Thank you. Again. There. I'm sorry for that. As I was saying, this is also common here in the Philippines. The study conducted by McKinsey and Company, the digital tools or the digital learning activities or even the current situation or the current modality in teaching and learning these days, we also have struggles and challenges such as lack of awareness. These are the barriers that are also common to us or to most of the students or even teachers here in the Philippines, such as lack of awareness, lack of capabilities to deploy or use the technology, or technologies are too expensive, and some believe that they have little to no impact on learning, especially the use of learning tools, and no confidence to work on with this digital learning tools. However, of course, if there are good things that the technology could give us, there are also barriers that we have to consider, challenges as we call it. But these challenges will not hinder us to, of course, learn. That's why we conduct learning activities and enhancements for teachers and students to prepare them for the digital learning and teaching and learning experiences. Okay. Moving on. So these are the digital learning activities that we follow and use here in the Philippines, particularly in San Pedro College. Digital learning activities have been more prevalent in the advent and height of the pandemic. So what are the ideal digital learning activities for this new setup in education? Of course, we have the learning management system. Even before the pandemic, we are one of the schools here in Mindanao or in Mindanao, Philippines, to use learning management system as we are aiming for the blended learning, shifting from the classroom to the blended learning class. And you can upload all your recorded lessons, your quizzes, and monitor your students. So learning management system will also serve as a digital learning activity tool because there are quizzes or assignments that the students can answer when you assign them. Here in our school, we use Quipper, one of the most prominent learning management systems in the Philippines. And also, we also have one of the prominent platforms and are for free. We have Google Classroom and the other learning management systems. Learning management system here, just like Quipper, apart from using them for you to upload your lessons, create your quizzes, they also have ready-made contents that will help us to supplement our teaching. Activities or even lessons. They have contents, they have educational department in the Philippines. Okay? And then after the learning management system, we also have online applications as supplements to teaching and learning and can also be source of digital learning activities. So these are free platforms that we use even before the pandemic and we keep on using up to these days and are indeed very helpful in the learning and teaching and learning experiences. For example, in the past, we tend to see preparing our lessons or our reports as students, no, using PowerPoint presentations, because we have to think of the design, we have to think of the pictures that we're going to use. But today we have Canva for that, no? Specifically, a free platform or even a Canva for education to make our presentations more interesting and interactive. We also have online quizzes to allow the students and teachers to interact and challenge, no, each other, especially in a healthy way, and even Kahoot as online quiz platforms that will, of course, allow the students to enjoy at the same time assessments or quizzes and examinations in the class. Further, in the height of the pandemic, especially us here in the Philippines or in the San Pedro College, we offer more on medically or health allied courses, and laboratory is one of our major teaching sectors here in our school. Because of the pandemic, the schools closed. We had to look for alternative in order for the students to still have an experience or somehow a real life experience of being in the laboratory to prepare them for their future careers. And therefore, for example, these are online simulations, no, that the school subscribe to, just like, for example, Labster. This particular online application will help us to do scientific experiments or even do chemical combinations and interact with the laboratory equipments. No, they may be digital, but they are somehow simulating the real life laboratory experiences. And for pharmacy students, we have My Dispense. No, just like Labster, My Dispense is an online platform that the pharmacy students use to learn how to dispense medicines, no, to prepare medicines, and even how to interact with their or communicate with their possible or future clients. So online or simulation platforms are also very important in the learning and teaching process here in San Pedro College. And of course, as a supplement, we also have the YouTube. So we use YouTube to upload all our recordings, class recordings, especially if there are students, or here in the Philippines, common that we have power interruption or internet connectivity interruption. So for those students, not to miss the class, not to miss the discussion, we upload our discussions, no, online, and we give them the copies of this so that they can review anytime, no, the topics that we discuss, and later on be prepared for any assessment that we're going to give them. Further, we also have online collaborative activities that were also presented by our previous speakers, which are very helpful for students to work with other students, or even as teachers to work with other teachers. So online collaboration tools are useful for project management, brainstorming, issue tracking, communication, file sharing, digital asset management, team morale, and feedback measurement. So we also use this with our communication students here in San Pedro College, especially in our AD English students or even language students, because again, communication is not only exclusive to verbal communication. We also have the computer-mediated communications these days that are also essential part of communication skills development. So online collaborative activities are very helpful here in our setup. And of course, as presented as well earlier, Zoom, to further enhance the communicative skills of our students, may they be language or non-language aligned courses or students, breakout rooms will help us to still allow the students to collaborate and discuss, among them the different activities and tasks or plan in the classroom, okay? In the digital classroom, should I say. And of course, we have we have this ready-made websites, free websites or editable websites that we can use to ask the students to make their online advocacies or even when they conduct research, instead of giving papers to their participants, we use the website in order for them to do their surveys, to do their introduction of their research to their target participants. So we have, these are actually all for free, such as Google Sites or even editable websites such as Wix.com, which have been proven very effective and helpful for students and teachers to present their ideas and to place their ideas. And of course, as what I've said earlier, online quiz platforms and trainings, especially for linguistics and English students, learners, or future teachers, or even teachers today, we find it hard to teach language in the past if we do not do it face to face. If the students cannot hear us, if the students cannot see us. Good thing that in the online world, thanks to the internet, we have digital learning activities and platforms that can help us to even assist the students, and to learn on their own during their free time, their ESL, English and other communicative skills, enhance their communicative skills in English. So, for example, we have, for example, Improve Your Accent, a platform where we can look and listen to the different pronunciations of words, and also games to learn English. We have here a spelling bee, vocabulary tests, that the students can use at their own time and pacing to learn English even without the presence of the teacher. What else? Of course, I'm almost done. Online tours, museums and art galleries. We can also use this platform if you are very familiar with Google Arts. I know, and we know that we are restricted with our movements are restricted because of the pandemic. But again, thanks to the internet and the technologies today, when we teach history or arts appreciation or even popular culture in class, especially in communication classes, we use these platforms in order to let the students to have a view or an experience, a digital experience of the different parts of the world. Say, for example, to save time, I'll just give you later on the links to this, or you yourself can look for this site. Just type Google Arts, and then you will be redirected to an online museum and cultural exposures and art galleries around the world. So very helpful. And lastly, I think I can turn on my camera now. I turned it off just to save the internet. Now, so what I also do for my communication and language students, we also do TV broadcasting and radio broadcasting, not just an activity in the classroom, but also when we have that will give them the feels and the idea on how to work and what it feels like to work in real life situations, especially in TV and radio. So we even join competitions, in TV and radio broadcastings, which are also helpful to develop their confidence and language mastery and delivery of the language, especially the English language. So we do activities such as TV broadcasting and radio broadcasting. There are different platforms we can use to teach TV broadcasting, especially that we are very techy these days. We can use them to learn. It's not that just like the old days, it's intimidating to learn broadcasting because of the so many equipment, but because of the compression. I don't know if that's the term, compression of the different technologies, the merging of the different technologies. We have minimal equipment to use to use for these kind of activities and successfully deliver them. So just like here, I'm with my students, holding an event as TV broadcasters and editors, and we also do we do visit radio stations and be familiar with the different equipment and simulate radio broadcasts. All right. So that's it. That's for my talk. I hope I finish it in 30 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. Shukran. Remember that digital platforms, as mentioned earlier by our previous speaker, should not be considered as threat or competitor. Instead, we have to see them as tools and allies to become more productive and educated citizens of the world. With that, I end my presentation. Daghang salamat. Thank you.
We can all give our applause because this is a very interesting presentation. I think there are many good points here, but the one I want to point out is one of the most important thing here is that we need to have target in our learning course. And there are many resources or softwares and platforms like, as Mr. Jesse said, there are Google Classrooms, Quipper, YouTube also. It's like the fact that we are actually streaming right now on YouTube. But we also have to know about the students' capability, like the internet connections, gadget capabilities. We have to know the barriers first before we design our online activities. So I think it is a very interesting insight. Once again, thank you, Mr. Jesse. Also to remind you all guys once again, untuk mengingatkan kembali kepada para presenter dan peserta, file rundown serta pembagian breakout room sudah di-share di chat box. Jadi bagi yang perlu informasi tentang presentasi, silahkan bisa dicek. Okay, now let's move on to our next speaker. He is Dr. Andes Lilik Supriyatmaji, MPD from Stigubang University Semarang. He has interesting achievements also. He had published the book of Social Purposes Disseminated in English Friday Sermon Services. It's published in 2014, and he is currently teaching at the English University of Stigubang from 2007. The theme is also going to be interesting, which is students' views on their reading experience. So for Mr. Lilik, please, the screen and the time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, as the moderator. Thank you all speakers and also all the participants. Please let me share my PowerPoint. Is it there now?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, all the participants. Thank you for giving me the time, for letting me share some ideas, especially related to small discussion, language skills. Is there any problem? No? Okay. And I would like to divide this discussion into several sub-topics. First one is illustration of how people may be involved in integrated language skills. And secondly, facts on reading experience. And the third is on reading activities, and finally, the metacognitive readers. The discussion will touch not only employing all the technologies, but we'll also see the case happenings around campus, especially Stigubang University. This I will expect to help participants to think of what actually is about students' experience in reading activity. Once I noticed actually in one corner of this campus, there were several students during the pandemic. Some students were dealing with their assignments assigned by the teachers. And one I heard from the female student said something to the male students, and it seems like to be the understanding of the written text in an online news item. Yeah? And the student, the female student, says that seeing so many people that came to Mom gives me the chills. And this was actually delivered to the male student. And you know that the male student did not respond to her statement, but rather he urged to continue reading the academic text assigned to it and to elaborate. The male student said, forget the news for a while. We have this longer text to elaborate. You can continue reading the news at home. Now what I want to talk about is what lies behind the very simple talk between the female and the male students related to the reading activity. Now, the first implicit meaning, if I can explain, is that actually reading is integrated with writing. So it was proof that the female student read an online news item reporting hero funerals, but then it is taken from the news items. And the second one, we can also see that speaking is integrated with listening. Here, we understand that the male student responded to the female student's statement about what was read. So there's a connection between reading and writing, and there is also a connection between speaking and listening, even from the very simple dialogue in the corner of a campus. Yeah? More than that, I believe that actually speaking can be integrated with reading. We traditionally think that speaking is connected to listening and reading is connected to writing. But the reality, we understand that after reading the online news, the female student used the understanding to say something. Therefore, so reading can stimulate the speaking skills. Yeah. This actually may inspire teachers whenever they teach a certain skill in the university or faculty. I think it is not wise to just focus on the reading, for example, teaching reading, on the reading activity only, without involving the other skills, for example, writing, or possibly speaking and listening. So you can vary the activity even if it is only in the reading class. And in this era, as we are glad to know and we are accustomed to using by the university, I think we need to optimize the Moodle that we are already using until now, so we can make the activities digitized or non-digitized, depending on the program of the teaching and learning process at the faculty. Yeah? The next implicit meaning is that reading actually is not a passive skill. Why it is not a passive skill? Because you know that somebody writes something in an online media or in printed materials, it doesn't mean that it is the reader ought to understand everything directly. No, but it is the part of the writer to encode the meanings, to encode the messages into the writing system or into the orthographic system. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. So the reader actually does not receive the messages, does not receive the meanings encoded by the writer, but they are actively engaged in the task meaning construction, no matter whether the materials are printed or digitized or computer-based. Yeah? So they have to make efforts. So what kind of efforts? So that the meaning construction can be made in readings. The first one is that we can analyze the system of wordings, as there are many theories on understanding the text. One of them is based on a theory of systemic functional linguistics. We can use the parsing tools, free version or paid version. So again, it depends on the program that we have in every individual faculty or university. So whether it is computer-based, whether it is digitized, or whether it is in a classroom activities, it is done by using the theory of systemic functional linguistics. The next one is that we can understand the meanings or the messages by using the theory of sociolinguistic and pragmatic theories. Of course, this is not especially presented for high school students or lower than high school students, but this is, I think, good to be presented to tertiary students or lecturers. Why? Because tertiary students, I do believe, learn something to do with sociolinguistics, with pragmatic theories, with systemic functional linguistics, not students of secondary schools. But whenever the teacher wants to apply it in secondary schools, I think whatever materials to be presented in online or in offline, they have to employ the theory here into practice, creating questions, creating comments, or developing the learning materials by adopting the theories of systemic functional linguistics, adopting the theories of sociolinguistics and pragmatics, yeah, so that students of secondary schools do not need to understand anything about the theories, but rather on practice and using the theories. And finally, especially in reading, literary work, we can develop the multiple roles of reading activity, by, for example, creating transactions or facilitating the transactions if we are teachers from the students to the literary work. Let me explain more in details about the meaning construction, especially done under systemic functional linguistics. As I said before, that this actually can be done computer-based or using the online facilities. We need to, in order to understand what is presented in the reading text, in order to understand the messages or meanings, we need to know the system of wordings. There are 3 different systems of wordings under the theory of systemic functional linguistics. The first one is under the field, and meaning that we need to know the experiential domain. So teachers must facilitate about this one, what the text is all about. You may use the coder, for example, as teachers or as students of tertiary education, but this is not suggested to be used to students of secondary schools or below. Yeah? So they need to know what processes are used in the reading text, the participant, the circumstances, and also the short-term goal and long-term goal, so that they know all about what is really presented in reading text. This is the field of the discourse. The next one is, you may also understand the tenor of the discourse, because you need to know how to understand a text. Systemic functional linguistics provides you facility to be used in understanding the tenor. Here we may understand the societal roles. Yeah? So the relationship between participants in the text, yeah, because sometimes we know that there are participants in a text. As we come to the authentic reading materials in WhatsApp, for example, in Facebook, in Instagram status, and possibly also in the dialogue of some short stories or novels. Yeah. So by employing the theory of systemic functional linguistics, especially in understanding the tenor, I think we can apply this one to understand the agentive or societal role, and then power and status, whether the status between the participants are hierarchic or possibly equal, maybe created temporarily or permanently. We don't know, but by analyzing them all, I believe that we know the relationships between participants in the text, and possibly also the participant outside the text, meaning that the readers with the text, or in this case, the writer of the text. And finally, we can also see the social distance, whether the participants of the text are very, very close or very distant, all right? So this is the way we try to understand the meanings based on tenor. The third aspect to be learned under the meaning construction based on systemic functional linguistics is that we know the mode, the text nature, whether it is monologic, whether it is dialogic, spoken or written, phonic or graphic, whether it is instructional or persuasive or literary. We know this very easily if teachers and teacher candidates like tertiary students develop their understanding on this theory. In meaning construction, as I said before, can be done by employing the systemic functional linguistics. We may also employ the theory of sociolinguistics and pragmatic theories. Yeah, and well, if you go through the internet, you'll find the tools to help you much in understanding the meanings, in understanding the messages of a certain text. But of course, we have to learn more of how to create a system in dealing with the variables to be made into the system, because it is not instant. Yeah. An example for this one is under presupposition theory. I would like to give you an example in a text. This is the text. It's a North Korean spy, Gong Yu, who is abandoned by North Korea, settled down in South Korea with his second wife. He then becomes the prime suspect in a murder case. So under this theory, maybe a teacher in the teaching and learning process set under a regular and traditional classroom, or possibly created in a computer-based activity, or possibly would be designed in digitized activity, could involve something like this theory. So if we know, if we go further, we may understand that in the text, even if it is not presented clearly, we may understand that Kung is supposed to marry more than one woman. He may be a prominent figure. He might also be dangerous to certain people. So I think by employing the sociolinguistics or maybe pragmatic theories, we can practice in meaning construction. Yeah. Again, as I said before, meaning construction in reading can also be conducted by demonstrating multiple roles. This is especially done whenever you are assigned by your teachers, or if you are teachers, you want to assign your students in reading literary works. something like a flash story, something like short stories or poems, by demonstrating responses, meaning that whatever activities it is, we can help, we can facilitate how to develop responses, how to increase emotional and intellectual participation, nourishing their perspectives, and also enriching the opinions and sharing the responses for building social relationships. Yeah. So this is, I think, the example of how meaning is constructed in a reading activity. Now come to the next implicit meaning. As before, you know that the implicit meaning, number one is, that language skills are integrated. The next implicit meaning is that reading is active. Now we come to the last implicit meanings. Here, from the dialogue between a female and the male students, we can understand that we need to develop awareness in reading. So developing awareness in readings means that we set the feelings, we set the purposes in reading, whether we will be more independent readers, whether we are able to create engagement. So this is really important. So from either one aspect in the classroom, regular classroom or traditional classroom, or even in digitized classroom. By being independent, we know why we are involved ourselves in the reading activities. That means we have to know the goals, we have to know the objectives for, say, is it for the academic achievement, or is it for fulfilling the tasks of the learning process, or for literary analysis and for fun? So here, students or teacher candidates and also lecturers must be well prepared for this to facilitate the learners, because we never understand the objective, we never recognize the objective, then we may think that what is all for the reading activities, and I'm afraid that the reading materials will not be appropriate. Now move to the facts on reading experience. Well, amidst COVID-19 pandemics, not only readings, everything is very difficult until now, even, that we know that many students have come already in regular classes, but some still held the online classes, including our university, Unisbank. So they are reading materials from home during the COVID-19 pandemics. It was really difficult, or it is really difficult even still, okay? Reading text is often with multimodality, because it is usually employed in the LMS, learning management system, which is very popular in Moodles. Okay, sometimes using blogs, sometimes using emails only, and even WhatsApp, or possibly also Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, so it is really difficult to read the combination of elements in the text. Therefore, we know that the reading text for different subjects seems to be multi-modality based. Yeah? There are pictures, there are diagrams, there are words, so makes it very complicated for the learners to understand. And students during the pandemics also face problems with metacognitive skills, as it is presented by a researcher, that reading fluency among the earliest graders, I don't know among the tertiary students, yeah, but it is based on research that among earliest graders in the US, it reads roughly about 30% behind what would be expected in a typical year. So suppose it was there was no COVID-19 pandemic, then maybe the reading fluency would increase, but the reality is different. That it was in the COVID-19 pandemic, so the reading fluency decreases among earliest graders. I don't know. I have no research report about the fluency of reading or reading activity in tertiary education. Guidance, therefore, among the reading activity is almost impossible in person, because no one is allowed to meet with others during the pandemic. Even they used technology like Skype, like Zoom or Google Meet. The reality does not much supporting, okay? Does not much support. So another study also explained that reading habit has stalled amidst pandemic. So it's really dangerous, yeah? Types of text, strategies, time for reading have changed across learners, all right? They try to read online with simplified materials, which were very difficult. And also reading interests may demotivate, because they have to face the screens of their laptops and possibly also the mobile phones. Well, technology, yes, does help, but if we are forced to watch the whole day, watch the screen the whole day, I think it would be very dangerous to our screen, to our eyes. Yeah. Now, move on to the reading activity. Actually, whether it would be made into digitized or would be made into computer-based, I think we need to follow the procedures. We need to know the objectives so that we can provide the appropriate materials. Yeah. So The reading activities should provide the learning to read. So reading instruction here is really important. This is for the teaching and learning process. Yeah. Well, learners could be trained to engage in the pre-reading, guided reading, and post-reading activities, which are very common to teachers teaching reading in the classroom, regular ones, and cover reading to learn. This reading for knowledge, this is meant to facilitate the students to be independent readers. This is very important because today and in the coming years, everything will be more conducted in online activities rather than in the offline activities, as presented by Bapak Ganjar and also Prof. Vasa and also Dr. Opada. I think they have shown you what types of technologies could be applied in the teaching and learning process. But I just want to share something to do with reading activities, yeah, that could be made into the traditional teaching and learning process, and also digitize teaching learning process. And the last one is reading for pleasure. This is, of course, more independent, all right? Why? Because you have to develop the motivations of the learners to enjoy reading. So reading activities in tertiary education or in whatever level, in whatever platform, I mean, whether it is in a traditional classroom or whether it is in digitized rooms, I think we need to provide the activity of reading, that is learning to read, reading to learn, and reading for leisure. If not, then I think we will lose the philosophy of the reading activity. Now, what about the rights to literacy? Well, the rights for literacy in the US has been made very clear. But in Indonesia, I think there is no rights, no law, no regulation related to right to literacy, except for the national regulation in education. So we have to translate this regulation in a more details so that we know we can come to everything related to literacy, or especially readings to learn, reading for leisure. Okay, and the last discussion is metacognitive readers. I think to be more independent in reading, we need to know what metacognitive is. I think something to do with the positive sides of the reading activity, knowing the metacognitive knowledge. Something like, we have to understand, something like learning in a quiet library is more productive than at home where there are many distractions. So this is something positive in our knowledge about the reading activity. So this is part of the metacognitive reading skills. And the next one is that we have to realize something sometimes, that the materials contained in a reading text sometimes very easy, such as the messages of WhatsApp, such as the messages or the statuses on Instagram. So they're very easy, but sometimes you find it very difficult. So something like in the theory of pragmatics in language studies, or maybe the mathematics formula in math, okay? So being aware that reading and comprehending more serious and complicated materials takes more time if we compare to the simple content. So how could we make this one into digitized? How could we make this one into computer-based? Well, I don't know, maybe Pak Ganjar, Prof. Fasa, and Dr. Opada provide you with the correct answer. So, now I want, because the title is a few students' views in reading activity, I would like to provide you with the reality understood by students. Yeah, this is that perspective that reading is significant. They understood this one, that reading is significant, but how we make this significant, this is the teacher's job, whether it is in the classroom or regular traditional classroom or using technology and the internet. And it is amazing that their reading preferences, you know, on social media. I don't know whether because this is responded under or within this COVID-19 pandemic or not, but in reality, they said that, you know, Instagram, WhatsApp becomes their preference. Okay? And, you know, academic text, PPT, article, and book chapters. Well, it's still okay, book chapters and articles, because what is meant by articles here, something downloaded from resources in the internet, like using the Google Scholar browsers, okay? And their reading methodology, well, you know, it's amazing, because smartphone becomes very popular, laptop, and some printed. And then, well, it is not recommended, but that is the reality. In reading, they are still murmuring in words. You know, I don't know whether they are not trained in the teaching and learning process to read in the lines, yeah, not word by word.
Excuse me, sir.
So on and so on. Okay.
Yeah, we're actually running out of time, so is
Yeah.
2 minutes okay? We'll give you another 2 minutes.
Almost
Yeah.
the end.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Now, rethinking to enhance reading experience. So we need to facilitate students with thinking or knowing that is the metacognitive reading skills, right? Engaging students in active reading instructions, yeah, reading for knowledge and reading for lesser, and preparing handouts, again, digitized or printed, okay? Or maybe we can make use of the materials in the internet. There are a lot of materials that we can use. This is just one example, but not all are possibly be used for the reading activities. Yeah. Reading English for everyone, English learning and listening. I think the second one is more appropriate for the discussion. If you want to get the experience, you just click this one and you will be directed to the materials and reading activities. But if you're interested in the listening, you can go there. Or even if you're interested in many different aspects of language teaching and testing and so on, but I'm sorry, I cannot talk more about this one due to the time, and especially the focus of discussion here is on reading activity. I think that's all. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Okay, we can all give an applause, everyone, for the presentation. I think this presentation is very intricate, and one of the things I want to give as a takeaway is that language skills are interconnected with each other, like how a meaning construction after reading is also connected to another skill such as linguistic theories. It is not necessarily a separate skills, but it is rather integrated, both in the context of teaching and learning process also. Thank you once again, Mr. Lilik, for the presentation. Now let's move on, everyone. Our fifth speaker of today will be Mr. Maxim Keen PC from English First. To let you guys know, he is someone who is very experienced in teaching. He was an interviewer for summer camp employment in Camp America, Australia from 2017 to 2019. He was an English teacher in English First Bekasi from 2019 to 2020. He was also an English teacher in English First Bali from May 2020 to present. If I'm not mistaken, the theme is very interesting. It's about information and communication technology. So for Mr. Maxim, please, the time and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Albert Daniel. So today, everybody, we're going to be looking a bit more into digital technologies, digital learning activities. But before we begin going down that road, I want to take a step back from this topic a little bit, because I believe that digital learning activities are really just an extension of what we're already doing. The digital learning and digital technologies are all seamlessly integrated into our lives already. Okay, when was the last time you left your house and you forgot your phone or something like this? Maybe it happens sometimes, but I guarantee you less people are doing this now than they did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, okay? It's seamlessly incorporated into our lives, okay? And likewise with our teaching techniques and things like that. So to begin with, before we go down the road of digital technologies, I want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. What makes a good teacher? Okay, what makes a good teacher? So to think about this, perhaps you can think of your favorite teacher when you were younger or your favorite teacher now, okay? What did you like about them? How did they engage you? How did they support your learning needs? Okay, I'll encourage all of you to share some suggestions in the chat, please. That would be great if you could. I'll give you a moment to think about this too, guys. What do you think makes a good teacher? Very good, some good responses there. Maybe, Daniel, would you like to share your response with the class, please?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I think what makes a good teacher is their ability to understand and support the students. Like every students certainly have a different motivations, and if the teachers can understand what their motivations are and support, I think it's what makes them a good teacher.
Yep, very good. I really agree with that. And we can see some similar responses coming through, such as Agnes, someone who can motivate students beyond expectations. So we're seeing a lot of things about support, motivation, and things like that. But what we're not really seeing a lot of in people's responses is an emphasis on digital technology and digital activities. And that's not because that digital technologies and digital activities are not important. It's simply because they're already seamlessly integrated into good teaching practice, right? We don't really need to think of them as a separate characteristic of teaching. It's going to be intertwined already. We just need to be willing to embrace it and perhaps think outside the box a little bit. Okay, so looking in a little bit further to what makes a good teacher, what does the research tell us about this? Okay, so if you look at the research, you can summarize it into basically two main categories. Okay, so firstly, a good teacher can effectively connect with students. Okay, largely what you guys were already reflecting in your responses. So all students have very individual needs. Okay, they have needs of belonging, needs for social interaction, needs to feel respected and valued. Okay, so as teachers, it's up to us to build some strong relationships that are based on trust, mutual respect, in order to understand each student's motivation, factors for learning, social needs, and things like that. Now, the research is showing that only once these needs are met can effective learning take place. So that connection is incredibly invaluable, both with adults and with children, I might add. So once we have established a good communication, good connection, good relationship, how can we make the learning most effective? The second thing I believe the research is showing is a good teacher knows how to make learning fun and interesting for their students. Okay, so again, this should be no surprise to all of you. This is largely what we were already thinking anyway. I'm sure if you think on your own life, the things that you are best at are the things you enjoy the most. And the things you enjoy the most are also the things that you are best at. Learning and fun go hand in hand quite naturally. So once we meet the basic needs, once we establish the respect, once we understand the students and their motives, then learning, making the learning fun really will make the learning the most effective. Okay, so how do we put the theory and research into practice? I'm going to share with you a little game that I like to play, okay, to connect with the students. So firstly, what I would like all of you to do, think of your favorite color, okay? Think of your favorite color. If you can't pick a favorite one, just pick one that could be your favorite for the purposes of this game. Then what I would like you to do is think of 2 or 3 adjectives that describe this color or why you like the color. Okay, so if that sounds a little bit confusing, let me give you an example. When I first did this game, I said, well, my favorite color is blue because I think it's cool, calm, and chilled. Okay, so think about yourself. What is your favorite color? How does that color make you feel, or why do you like it? See if you can think of 2 to 3 adjectives that describe it. Again, please feel free to share these responses in the chat, everybody. I'll give you all a moment to think about this, and I would love to see some responses in the chat if that's possible, please. Very good. Okay, very good. So hopefully everyone has thought of something there, at least 2 adjectives would be good. Or even if you can just get 1, that's going to give you some guidance for this game. Clean and calming. I like that. Pink because if possible, try and convert that into an adjective, okay? Pink because my name is Pinky. Maybe you can say because it's relatable. See if you can convert it into an adjective of some kind, okay? Now, the second part to this. One moment, please. Same thing again, but this time we're going to focus on your favorite animal, okay? Think of your favorite animal. Now, I know that's difficult, okay? When I first did this, I couldn't really think of a favorite animal, but for the purposes of this game, just pick one that could be your favorite animal, one of your favorite animals, okay? And then 2 to 3 adjectives that describe this animal or why you like this animal. So again, if you need a bit of help, I can share an example here. This is what I first said when I played this game the first time. So I said my favorite animal is an eagle. And the reason was when I think of an eagle, I think of something like this. You know, to me, it seems kind of fast, bold, awesome, okay? So try and relate it to some adjectives as best you can, 2 to 3 of those. And it would be great if you can share them in the chat too. Honey badger, good one. Silent but deadly, nice. Wow. Okay, very good guys, that's great. So I hope you've all had a moment, enough time to think about this one, because what we're going to do is we're going to explain what this means now. So this is a game, but it's also kind of a bit of a personality test, okay? So what does it mean? So the first one, the color, is actually supposed to be a reflection of your own personality, okay? So the adjectives that you used to describe that color are actually supposed to be a representation of your own personality. So you might remember I said blue because I think it's cool, calm, and chilled. So according to this game or this test, I am actually cool, calm, and chilled, okay? You might not necessarily agree with the results. When I first saw this, I thought, I don't know, but there are lots of people that said that this is true. Lots of my friends said, yeah, that's true. That really describes you. So you might not see yourself in this way. It might be more of a reflection of how other people see you. Okay. So how about Professor Vassal, if you're still there? Can you explain what your personality is according to this? Is Professor Vassal still there? Or maybe Jesse? Is Jesse still in the room?
Yes, I'm in the room. Let's Jesse work. Let Jesse do the talk then.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Let Jesse do the talk.
Okay, sure.
It's true, I agree.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right, so number 2 then, the animal. So the animal is actually supposed to be a reflection of the type of personality that you are attracted to romantically, okay? Now this was a little bit confusing for me, okay? You might remember that I said I like eagles because they are fast, bold, and awesome. So apparently I'm attracted to girls that are in fact fast, bold, and awesome. What to make of that, I'm not too sure. I might need some therapy at some point in the future. Okay, so what about you guys? Perhaps Daniel, what did you make of this? Do you think it's accurate?
I think that's very accurate.
Really?
Yeah. I like honey badger because they're very persistent, and yeah, I think I like someone who are very persistent also. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Interesting. So it's quite interesting to reflect on this kind of stuff to see if it's true or if it's not true. Now, even if you don't agree with the results. Okay, and that's quite possible. I have absolutely no evidence to prove that this is accurate, guys. It's just a game, it's just a test. Even if you don't agree with the results, it still connects us with the students. It gets us talking, it gets us interested, okay? I would encourage you guys, if you have a partner, to do this test on them and see if there's any matching going on. Maybe they pick an animal that matches the adjectives that you picked as your color, or vice versa. So how can we turn something like this into a digital activity? Well, right now we already are, okay? As we've discussed today, these kinds of online platforms are in fact themselves a digital activity. We're engaging in the chat function, okay? Sharing thoughts in the chat function and things like that. If you really wanted to extend this, you could create some kind of graphic organizer, online graphic organizer that shows each student's responses, okay, to spark discussions. Graphic organizer, or perhaps a table, or perhaps some kind of graph, okay? You could use this as some kind of online survey with students, okay? So some other ways that we can connect with students using digital technologies, okay? I mentioned online classes. We can really use our surroundings to our advantage in online classes. Lots of people think that the spirit of an online class was lost, you know, from the regular classroom to the online classroom. Lots of people thought that it took a step back. I would argue that in many ways, there are still a lot of things you can do to make the classroom come alive, even if we're not actually physically sharing the same space anymore. For example, when I teach group classes of children, I quite often get them to go on treasure hunts in their house, okay? I say, can everyone find me their favorite toy, okay? Or can everyone show me their favorite poster in their room, or something like that. It really creates an alive atmosphere on the online class. And again, it gets us connecting with the students as well, okay? We learn a bit more about each other. This is not something that we could do so easily before. As mentioned before, online surveys are a great way to connect with students. There's one that I like there, Plickers. It connects to phone apps and things like that. And connecting deeper with each other's lives, okay? Using things like Google Earth. I've had some students give me virtual tours of their neighborhoods, of their cities, and things like that using Google Earth and Street View. Again, this really forms great connections with the students, and it's all using digital technologies. So what about making the learning more fun using digital technologies? Well, there's many, many things that we can do, but one thing I will emphasize is making the learning fun is going to be largely informed by your ability to connect with the students, okay? We connect with the students and then we learn how we can make it fun for them. Now, I would say when it comes to digital learning, this has been really, really good for visual learners, okay? There is a plethora of videos, imagery, graphs, and things like that online at our fingertips. And it is very effective at engaging students, sparking discussions, particularly for shy students, okay? Some shyer students have trouble producing their own language from scratch. But if you give them some visual stimulus, as discussed, it really helps them produce language. Again, the chat function is a great one to embrace, okay? Especially when it comes to spelling. I found in the past, spelling is quite a tedious area to teach. It's not something that kids really enjoy. However, if you turn this into some kind of race, okay, for example, first person who can spell bottle correctly, type in the chat, they love it. It really sets the class alive, okay? A few little funny things, that playing with the mute function also. This is good for some pronunciation, okay? You can mute yourself say something and have the students try and read your lips, all right? A few other things that you can look into, digital escape rooms. I have not really looked into too much depth into this, but I'm sure it's a very good resource. There's one there that you can check out. Scavenger hunts, as I mentioned before, are also very effective. There's a load of games and apps there that I've mentioned. Pictionary, especially, like I said, is great at engaging those visual learners, okay? Plus, kids love to draw, okay? So that's a good one for them. Discussing media, of course. It's a great springboard for producing language. Things like podcasts, documentaries, news stories, okay? And speaking of news stories, there's a great resource down below that you can see, Learn English with News Stories. This is a good one because it actually has different gradings of English. For beginner students, you can look at stories that are written in A1, A2 level of English, and it goes right up to C1, C2 for more advanced learners. And this resource actually also has lots of good tips and strategies for your lesson plans at engaging the students with these news stories. Okay, so finally, to sum up everything, I would say simply just try and be creative. The ideas that I have given you here are just some basic suggestions, but the opportunities are really endless if you are willing to embrace the digital technologies and think outside of the box a little bit. They're shouldn't be thought of as a challenge to learning, but rather as an opportunity, right? We're already seamlessly engaged with this technology anyway. We just have to fully embrace it. And I think you will also find that even just the simplest technologies that we are already using are quite often the best for connecting with students and making it fun. You do not need access to very high quality materials, or you do not need to pay subscriptions, expensive subscriptions to services to get decent digital learning activities and resources for your students. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, what a very insightful discussion we had. I think as a student, I cannot agree more. I think it is an amazing one. Also, I really like the optimism. So yeah, could we give applause to Mr. Maxim, please?
Thank you.
It is a very interesting take indeed. Like, digital learning is indeed already integrated, and I think what should we improve more is the way the teachers can connect with the students and make the students feel relatable, and basically making the students feel like they're welcomed. Yeah, I think once those conditions are met, learning is definitely going to be effective in one way or another. So yes, once again, thank you for the interesting discussion, Mr. Maxim. Now we will move on to question and answers. Apparently, we already have so many questions in the chat box. I really like that. You guys are very engaged. For the first question, it is from Ma'am Agnes to Dr. Gajar. Is Dr. Gajar here? Yes, okay.
Okay.
The question is, what are the processes that we have to take to be digital native teachers?
Oke, langsung saya jawab.
Yes, please.
Ya, thank you, Bu Agnes. Saya sepakat tadi dengan yang disampaikan oleh JC Ovada. Bagaimanapun seorang pengajar, dosen yang memanfaatkan berbagai media, intinya adalah bisa menghubungkan berbagai alat itu dalam konteks pembelajaran. Misalnya Bu Agnes sudah memanfaatkan Wattpad untuk penulisan kreatif mahasiswanya gitu. Oke, mungkin bagi beberapa mahasiswa merasa nyaman dengan Wattpad gitu. Tapi ada beberapa mahasiswa yang merasa nyaman mempublikasikannya, mungkin menulisnya di Wattpad, tapi senang mempublikasikannya di Instagram. Nah, mungkin Bu Agnes bisa menghubungkan, kalian menulis di Instagram, tetapi untuk cuplikan atau promosinya tetap di menulisnya di Wattpad, tapi promosi karyanya di Instagram. Buatlah cuplikan-cuplikan yang menarik dengan berbagai gambar. Nah, mungkin untuk mempublikasikan di Instagram itu, Bu Agnes bisa menghubungkan lagi dengan aplikasi lain misalnya. Jangan hanya, kalau misalnya Photoshop atau Adobe Editor itu bagi beberapa mahasiswa kurang ramah gitu, kurang ramah pengguna. Bisa misalnya Bu Agnes menyarankan ke mahasiswa, gunakanlah Canva misalnya, karena kan gampang di HP dan sebagainya. Nah, untuk desain publikasi di Instagram ataupun di Facebook, anjurkan misalnya mahasiswa menggunakan Canva untuk desainnya dan sebagainya. Karena bagaimanapun di era multimodal sekarang, promosi semacam itu sangat didasarkan pada visual yang eye catching gitu ya, enak dilihat. Nah, mungkin Canva bisa memfasilitasi itu. Jadi bisa jadi berbagai modal nih, berbagai mode yang dimanfaatkan. Wattpad, Instagram, Facebook, kemudian untuk mendukung visualisasi menggunakan Canva, atau teman-teman mahasiswa yang akrab dengan PowerPoint, PPT, Salindia ya, slide itu bisa kan, desain di Salindia juga sudah bagus-bagus sekarang, bisa memanfaatkan itu. Dengan menggunakan fitur dulu Salindia, dibuat desainnya dalam PowerPoint, kemudian di save as, disimpan sebagai PDF ataupun gambar. Jadi memang kita generasi, kalau generasinya saya dengan Bu Agnes itu kan kadang hanya satu moda yang digunakan itu, misalnya kalau Zoom ya Zoom gitu. Kemudian masih banyak loh Bu Agnes dosen yang belum memanfaatkan whiteboard di Zoom itu, padahal itu efektif juga untuk memberi contoh dan sebagainya gitu. Nah, jadi berbagai sisi dan berbagai mode yang dituntut dari kita sebagai dosen atau guru di era digital native itu, bisa menghubungkan berbagai alat dan metode yang kita gunakan di dalam kelas. Terima kasih, thank you very much.
Terima kasih Pak Kaja.
Okay, before I proceed to the next question, I just want to remind that maybe we will open the question and answer session until 11:20, so around 7 minutes. Okay, let's go straight to the next question. Ma'am Agnes also asked to Associate Professor Fasa, what is the most possible online tool that can make the students engage effectively?
I think I would have to agree with Mr. Maxim that it's not the technology, it's the teacher. You can't use technology to engage with the student. I recently see a lot of search on using Kahoot, for example, like when we move all the classes to online, right? A lot of teachers were talking, oh, let's use Kahoot. And if the first class used Kahoot, the second class used Kahoot, the third one used Kahoot also, it's like it's tedious. Like no one gonna like to do that all the time. So it's our creativity to engage, and like Maxim was saying, that they have to like us before they can engage with us, right? We have to find way to connect with the student, and that is always the most difficult things to me. It's just like you have 20 students, you have 30 students, how can you engage with them? Like typically the first class I don't teach, I just want to get to know them. That is more important. Some teacher might say that it's just a waste of time. Why do you want to like just talk to them for the first class, wasting 3 hours? But that's very critical.
Okay,
I'm not sure if Mr. Maxim has anything to add on this, because he seemed to be really on this topic.
Yeah, of course I'd agree with that. Like obviously, as I mentioned, the connection with the student is the number one thing, but the connection is also about learning about their learning style as well. So there's not yeah, it would be impossible to suggest one single digital learning technology based on that alone. Every student has completely different learning styles and learning needs.
Right. So have different modality would be helpful, right? Some student might want to learn with you, like listening to you lecturing, but some student can do everything by themselves. So that's like, I mean, have a lot of different tools at your disposal would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you for the answers. I think it's very interesting. Okay, we can go to the next question. Ma'am Katarina, do you want to ask?
Okay. I want to say thank you for all of the speaker, for Professor Fasa, for Mr. Maxim, for Mr. Opada, Pak Ganjar, and also Pak Lili. Your speech is really inspiring, and we can conclude, we can summarize that at this global era, at the ICT era, there is a shift of teaching paradigm, teaching and learning paradigm, from teacher center to student centers, in which the students should be more active, and also there is a shift of the teacher roles. In the past, the teacher become the must transfer knowledge, But at present, the teacher, must become facilitator, because the teaching contents have been available in web, as what Pak Ganjar said, and then Mr. Fasa said, that also Mr. Opada said that the teaching material has been available in web. There are abundant material. So the teacher will become the facilitator, And the teacher must be literate in technology, And this is a challenge for the teacher, especially old teacher, as what Pak Ganjar said, This is become challenge for the old teacher who are less literate in technology, And then I want to ask you, especially for Mr. Fasa, who teach in education institution, and then also for Mr. Maxim, who also teach in education institution, and then also for Mr. Opada, who teach in education institution. Would you please share to us, for teacher, especially teacher in Indonesia here, how to design learning model in order that to make our students motivated, to make our students energized, in order that they can achieve the learning outcome. They can achieve the 21st century skills such as operation skill, and then problem solving skill, etc. Because we know that based on our experience, there are also we also find the students who are less motivated, less energized to study. The material exposed in the internet have positive and also negative impact for the students. Okay, thank you. You please, Asa, and then also Mr. Opada and Mr. Maxim, who said about the learning model to attract the students.
I'm sorry, the question was a little bit hard to follow. The connection was breaking up a little bit for me there.
Okay. So, Mr. Maxim, I want to ask you to share your experience. You teach in EF, English first. How to design the learning model. To design the learning model that can make the students motivated, energized to learn, because based on our experience, we also find the students who are less motivated to study. So the learning material exposed in the internet or in the web not only have positive impact, but also negative impact. You said, yeah, you mentioned 3 points: connecting with the student, make learning fun, and be creative, etc. Can you share briefly learning model that you designed?
Well, that in itself is I think is a good model to approach it. But when we're talking about specifically engaging students as well, something that I didn't discuss a lot about, but some of the other presenters covered in really good detail, was the metacognition aspect. So when we're teaching, if possible, we need to motivate the learners to understand why they are learning this. So that can be quite difficult with children, especially. As adults, most of us already have the motivation to learn something. Otherwise, we simply wouldn't do it. With children, you might actually need to go the extra mile and give them some sort of explanation as to why they need to learn this. And that is far more easy with subjects like language than it is, for example, with maths and things like that. So again, it comes down to the creativity. How creative can you be at convincing the students that this is important to learn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Maxim. Would you please, Dr. Fasa, can you share your experience?
Maybe if we just to piggyback on Mr. Maxim, maybe if we could connect them with something that they like, and again, it means we have to know them, right? For math, personal experience, I hate math, and I read a novel about math professor to actually put myself into like learning math. Like it's like a romantic novels about math genius and his servant, you know. So it's beautifully written, and it get me inspired about, oh, I need to know math so that I can read this novel. And it really takes time to get to know your student. So one thing that I really recommend everyone to do is to ask for feedback, like every so often. Like we do it at our school now, like a large scale. We do it at during the midterm. So we sort of target the short question for students who really want to improve instruction. We ask something like, how can we as a teacher help you learn better? How can we improve learning experience from our standpoint? And those questions are analyzed quickly, and then we spread it back to the teacher, like throughout the college, so that they can get back to the student and explain to them that I agree with your suggestion here. I don't agree with your suggestion here because of X and Y and Z. So basically, it opened up another channel for teacher and student to communicate throughout the semester.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fasa. So feedback is the key point, yeah, Dr. Fasa. Yeah, feedback and communication. Yeah, thank you. Please, Mr. Opadok, can you please share your experience?
Hi, I'm sorry about that. Having a difficulty with my internet connection at the moment, but I sent my answer in our chat box. But just to emphasize, here in our based on my experience, I personally follow the learner-centered model, wherein we allow the students to be the main focus of the teaching and learning activities. No, we allow them to explore tools available around, since it's easy for them as digital natives to use the available tools and to manipulate them. In here, usually we let them choose the platform that they would like to use to present a particular task. We provide general instructions, but we let them look for the best platform to convey their message. And through learner-centered model in teaching and learning, we are allowing ourselves to realize that there are really talents and skills that are left unexplored by the students. And when they do the activity, they realize that they have skills for this when they try and manipulate the different digital platforms. So I know that there are times that it's taxing or exhausting on the part of the teacher to get to know digital platforms, but most of the time the students here in our school teach us, the different digital platforms to help us to explore different digital platforms. By when they use them in the different activities, we get to know these digital platforms are also available. And with that, we also try to explore them later on. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Opada. So you give freedom to your student to choose the platform. So it means that you apply democracy in your class, yeah, Mr. Opada, yeah. Okay, thank you. The moderator, please. I have finished.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Katarina, and for all the questions and answers. I still see some questions in the chat box, but unfortunately our time is very limited, so we will actually move on. I really like seeing the engagement though, so yeah. Our next session is giving the certificate to our honorary speaker, so please, the operator. Our first speaker of the day is Dr. Ganjar Harimansyah from Central Java Provincial Language.
Dr. Ganjar, thanks for being here with us.
Yeah.
It's a very great opportunity to have you here.
Thank you, matur nuwun sangat, Bu Agnes. Terima kasih Stiku Unisbank atas konferensinya yang hebat ini.
Kapan-kapan kami undang lagi ya Pak, bersedia ya.
Siap. Thank you very much. Matur nuwun.
Thank you for being a part of this event, Dr. Ganjar. Our second speaker will be Associate Professor Fasa Burapadeja from Assumption University.
Yes, Dr. Fasa, thank you very much for being here with us. It's a great opportunity to have you here with us. And who knows, later on in the next years, we can have more collaboration with you. Thanks again.
Once again, thank you, Dr. Fasa.
Thank you.
Yeah. For our third speaker, it will be Mr. Jesse P. Opada from San Pedro College.
Okay, Mr. Jesse P. Opada, thanks again. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and thanks for joining with us today. We will have more collaboration in the next year. Yeah, we do hope so. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Terima kasih, maraming salamat po.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for Mr. Jesse. And for our fourth speaker of the day, it is Mr. Lilik Supriyatmaji, MPD.
Pak Ali, terima kasih banyak.
Ya, makasih
atas partisipasinya dan sharing idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And for our last but not least speaker, the fifth one is Mr. Maxim EC from English First.
Yes, Mr. Maxim. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah. I
Makasih
think
banyak.
even though, yes, you are the last but not least, I agree with Daniel, and thanks for sharing your experience with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terima
Much
kasih.
appreciated. My pleasure.
Thank you once again to Mr. Maxim. Before we end our plenary session today, we will take pictures first. So everyone, please turn on your camera. We will take a picture for quite some time.
Okay. So please turn on your camera. And I start. Wait. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Please turn on your camera. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. Let's finish.
It's finished? Okay. And with that, there you have our plenary session, everyone. Thank you for each of the keynote speakers, and thank you for every one of you who participate in the plenary session. After this, we will have a break for approximately how many minutes? Please, maybe the MC can take over. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for Mr. Daniel. Thank you for all the speakers. So, ladies and gentlemen, what wonderful speeches that we all have listened to. We will have a break for 35 minutes. You all should be back at 12:15 to the main room and wait for the host to assign you to a specific breakout room. And in breakout rooms, you all will be moderated by our liaison officials. Before that, I want to announce untuk presenter, untuk memudahkan pembagian breakout room, mohon untuk merename kembali Zoom-nya dengan format yang sudah disediakan di chat room. Dan bagi semua peserta yang hadir, mohon mengisi presensi yang sudah dibagikan di chat room. Have a nice break and see you soon.
Semua ini dimulai ketika semangat untuk mewujudkan mimpi semakin dekat menjadi kenyataan. Dunia berubah begitu cepat. Setiap ide baru bermunculan, seiring dengan perubahan cara menjalani kehidupan yang baru. Terus belajar, terus menyesuaikan, dan terus berusaha menemukan kemana tujuan akhirnya. Untuk suatu saat nanti, kamu akan berhasil menjadi pengusaha, menjadi ahli keuangan, menjadi manajer hebat di suatu perusahaan besar, atau kamu akan menjadi pengacara handal.
I don't know about you, baby, but I feel the stage anyway. I can't swimming in a
Apapun yang akan kamu pilih, jadilah dirimu sendiri. Kehidupan seperti apa yang kamu putuskan untuk kamu jalani? Cerita apa yang akan kamu tulis? Lihatlah gambaran besarnya. Sejauh mana kamu peduli terhadap dirimu?
I never thought it would end like this. Guess I should just hold tight and grab your shit.
Sejauh mana kamu tahu kekuatanmu? Sejauh mana kamu mengenal talentamu? Dan sejauh mana kamu mampu bertahan untuk terus berusaha? Bagaimana kamu memastikan apa yang benar-benar kamu inginkan?
I don't know about you, baby. Really feel the stage anyway. I can't think about it lately. Love doesn't taste what I can't wait. Give me some time to let it go.
Tempat di mana kamu bebas berkreasi. Tempat di mana interaksi begitu hangat dan jujur. Tempat yang membuatmu bersemangat dan serasa semua energi berputar di sekelilingmu. Saling memberikan semangat, saling memberikan kesempatan, tidak peduli asalmu dari mana, dan bahasa apa yang kamu gunakan. Waktu kita terbatas, lakukan sesuatu yang luar biasa. Teruslah lapar akan pengalaman. Teruslah ikuti passionmu. Ayo, terus maju wujudkan mimpimu. Masa depan sudah di sini. Hai Pak, saya sedang berlatih untuk besok.